Mentioned earlier in the conversation the economic benefits the U.S. could gain from this foreign aid. And in your piece for the National Review, you quoted U.S. Senator Roger Wicker, and this was the quote: "The United States' economy also stands to gain as 75% of the bill's funding will go to Americans, including $59 billion for weapons productions." In a conversation that I had with Congressman Tim Burchett earlier this month, he said he is not supporting additional funding for Ukraine because it, quote, or it has the industrial war complex's, quote, fingers all over it. What do you think of his characterization?
So I guess it's damned if we do, damned if we don't on this, right? If it goes overseas, it's susceptible to corruption. If it stays domestically, it's susceptible to defense industrial base. Here's what I'd say, and I think it's important because those numbers are slightly different than mine, and that's because that also accounts for humanitarian assistance. That other 25% is humanitarian assistance going directly to Israel or to Ukraine. But of the $59 billion in security assistance, which is 59 out of 61 billion total, so like I said, 95%, it goes to U.S. companies. And look, they weren't asking for this. I nowhere have I heard that U.S. companies were complicit with Vladimir Putin in initiating this war. They are the companies that are building the system. This is really not like new work in terms of like they've designed a new weapon system. It's 155 millimeter ammunition, Javelin missiles, AMRAAM missiles, some tank modernizations. These are not the kind of high profit jobs, that the defense industrial base, the kind of like heavy R&D, research and development, next generation weapon systems where you tend to spend a lot of money. Look, they're making money on this. There's no doubt about it. They're creating jobs on this. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think this is some kind of plan of the defense industrial base, to significantly alter U.S. spending.
You're clearly the expert here. So what do you think is missing from the national conversation when it comes to foreign aid?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that question because it really is. It's about it. It is a look. Foreign assistance is a two-headed coin. One part is what are you doing for a partner or ally, and you want to make sure that partner or ally is someone who shares our values and interests, committed to democracy, committed to free trade, to transparency, to a rules-based system where our companies can operate in their country and their companies can operate in ours. Ukraine meets that mark. Israel meets that mark. Taiwan meets that mark. But the other side of the coin is it's in U.S. national and economic security interests to have countries like that available around the world and to have the other countries see that we were willing to step in and do the right thing. So an alliance with the United States, is a meaningful, acceptable solution for them. Very few countries see a world where they can be our economic the economic partner of choice can be the United States, but their security partner of choice is China, Russia, Iran. They all know China, Russia, and Iran won't allow that they'll be drawn in economically and be cut off from us. So the coin has two sides, one that's beneficial for our ally and partner, and one that's beneficial for us.
And as we sit here today, who do you think is the biggest national security threat that we face? China, Russia, or Iran?
I think the long-term pacing threat is China. It's the one for which there's not a guarantee, which I could not sit here and say, I know the exact investment path to success. If you asked me how do you deal with Russia, I can explain it to you. If you ask me how to deal with Iran, I can explain it to you. And those are both very economically feasible, executable plans. The one that's hard is China. China is a very, their economy is about 90% the size of ours. Their cost of labor is significantly less. They've had a significant amount of intellectual property theft from us. So they're really well positioned. And geographically, they're obviously much closer to the areas we might contest with them in the Western Pacific. So that's a big challenge for us. So if you ask me what's the biggest challenge for us, it is the China one.
And to your point, how do you see the U.S. dealing with Russia and dealing with Iran?
So with Russia, I do think it's here in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin made a horrific misstep in February 22. There's no way in February of 2022 that he thought it was anything other than a 1 week to 2 week campaign. We know that from the captured documents. We know that from their logistic support, their planning, their targeting. This was a 2-week campaign. He does not have the large-scale maneuver army he thought he had. His Air Force has not been able to get air power going. He has been stymied by a small state, one-third the size of his, backed up admittedly by the United States and European partners, but with no troops. So, to me, the way to continue to stymie him is to stymie him in Ukraine, keep him there. There are natural instabilities in his system. He runs basically an autocracy where he's killed, an authoritarian regime where he's killed many of the oligarchy, who surround him. So from my point of view, there is a timestamp on that regime, and it will come due, reasonably soon. So we just need to continue to counter him in Ukraine.
And
for
what about
Iran, for Iran, it's fully support Israel. Make sure that they can defeat Hamas completely, get their hostages back, restore Gaza to the Palestinians, allow the Saudis and others to kind of fund the recovery of that, and then present a strong deterrent face to Hezbollah. Iran can be backed down with strong deterrent actions by the United States and Israel. And there's no doubt in anyone's mind that Israel will take the actions required. On occasion, there's questions about us, but most recently, we've been striking pretty hard against the Houthis and against the IRGC groups in Syria and Iraq. So I think as long as we continue that strong positioning by Israel and by ourselves, rearm Israel, we'll be in a strong position vis-a-vis Iran.